You are listening to the Horse Radio Network, part of the Equine Network family.
This is episode 110 of the Wisdom by WESA show on the Horse Radio Network. This is Mike Donnell.
I'm Casey Wilbanks-Coletti.
And this is Sofia Yagela. Welcome to Wisdom by WESA on the Horse Radio Network, part of the Equine Network family.
This podcast is brought to you by the Western and English Sales Association, WESA, which provides the world's largest trade events for retailers, manufacturers, and sales representatives of the equestrian industry. In this podcast, we feature exclusive interviews with noteworthy Western and English personalities, retailers, and exhibitors who you've always wanted to talk to. Don't miss out on all the news from manufacturers and retailers in the equine industry. Today is May 15th, which is a big day at the WESA office.
Yes, today is the August exhibitor contract deadline. So members who want to exhibit have until the end of today to submit the contract for the August WESA trade show. And again, you can do that very easily on wesatradeshow.com. Just sign in and then sign up. And if you want to be included in the directory listing, you will really want to submit your contract today to be listed.
And speaking of the upcoming trade show, today's guest will be joining us at the August WESA trade show, correct?
Yes, it's really exciting. So for a few years, WESA has been hosting daily parties, which are themed events, including complimentary food items and drinks. But this August, we're excited to also welcome JT Rockwell to the daily party for not only a meet and greet, but also a live painting. So that's going to be super exciting. So watch out for more info on the event, which we named Brushes and Bites, on Thursday, August 24th.
Will the painting be available for sale?
So the painting that he will be painting in August will be available for sale, and JT will actually donate a portion of that to West Trust. And then on top of that, JT also painted a special artwork for us that we will be using for the January WESA Trade Show Directory cover. So that's the artwork that all of our signs and print pieces are based on. That painting will be raffled off in January, and all proceeds will also go to West Trust.
WESA is introducing an exciting new feature for the daily party at its summer show in Dallas. Guests will have an opportunity to chat with Western artist JT Rockwell and watch while he actually creates one of his unique pieces of colorful Western art. Painting is far from being Rockwell's only talent. He's a fifth-generation cowboy, a movie actor, and a stuntman, and a trick horse trainer. We asked him to join us on the show to chat about what he has in store for folks attending the August show and to share stories about his very interesting life. Hey, JT Rockwell, thank you for joining us on the Wisdom by WESA podcast.
Great to be here.
You know, we know that you have a relationship with WESA. For our listeners who are members of WESA, they're retailers, they're manufacturers, they're brands, they go to the major WESA shows, and you're going to have a very prominent role in the show coming up in August, and we're all very excited about that.
Yeah, I'm very excited as well.
We know you're going to be there. We want to talk about your artwork and what inspires you and how you come about it, but I think everybody needs to know that you're a multi-talented guy, not just a one-dimensional painter. And I know you've been in the movies, you're a cowboy, you're a stuntman. For our audience who really wants to know a little more about who the guy is who also creates this fabulous colored art, give us a little rundown on you, will you please?
Okay. Yeah, I'm an actor, trick horse trainer for the movie industry, and a stuntman. I have 14 world records as a stuntman. I also do the special effects as well, and doing the pyro and such. If you see Con Air, everything that blew up in that was my work, and then robotics on like Westworld and Terminator 3 and all that. So I kind of hit both ends of the pendulum of, I'm a nerd building robots one minute and doing my cowboy horse stuff and training horses the next minute, which really worked out when I was doing the TV series Westworld and got a chance to do all of that. One minute I'm building those robots that you see there, and then the next minute they call me on set and doing some horse work or burning a wagon or blowing up something. So I'm multi-talented. I've been doing it for 46 years, started when I was 15, 16 years old on this sci-fi movie they were doing. I cut my teeth on it and it ended up being a movie called Star Wars. So where do you go from there, right? And then ended up working on a lot of other shows. And then I was one of the recurring roles on the TV series called Falcon Crest. And actually I was a stunt double for David Selby and Lorenzo Lamas and all that. And then the last season I played Lorenzo's best friend on the show, which wasn't too far-fetched because we're still best friends and talk and do all that as well. But I've done over 400 films, TV shows, commercials, music videos. I did a music video that they wanted to do for Madonna and something that's never been done with horses before. So I buried 2 horses completely in the ground with dirt over the top of them and had them come up out of the ground for her music video called Future Lovers. And you can Google that and you can see the work on that. And I ended up putting 2 horses in the ground at 10 different spots, and it looks like 30 horses coming up out of the ground. And I get called to do the intense stuff that nobody can do with horses. My horses have 250 tricks on them. They rear, bow, lay down, fetch, and they can actually spell their name. I'll throw blocks out there and they'll pull their letters out in sequence to their name, or I'll say, hey, what's 3 times 3? And they'll look around and give me a 9, so they are the smartest horses in the world. And I'm really blessed to be able to train them to do all those tricks.
You put a number out there as your kind of background, 14 world titles as a stunt person?
Yeah, I'm really blessed to be able to work on both ends of the stunt world, because a lot of times the special effects guys will build like the car or whatever, or the pyro, and then the stuntman gets in the car or gets blown up or whatever. So I wanted to do and basically pack my own chutes. When something's going to blow up, I want to be able to set the charges and do that so I don't get blown up by some guy that wasn't paying attention. So I learned to be able to push the envelope when I'm in that car and go, well, I can push it farther or crash it or jump it or be on fire longer if I do this. And so I was able to really push the envelope. And some people, collect cards or stamps or whatever, but I collect world records. So I started doing that and then making a name for myself in the industry. And yeah.
Well, so when during this exciting career that you've developed in the entertainment world, when and where did the impetus to become a paint and become an artist, when did that come about?
Well, early on in my life, I was doing my dad took me to work. He was a rancher as well as he built machinery and stuff and robotics. And that's where I learned to do that kind of stuff. And he brought me to work with him and sat me down and says, well, bring your artwork and just sit there and draw this machine that just to keep me busy. And of course, then I was drawing it out, painting it in a whole bit. And the president of the company, which is Boise Cascade, come around and he was impressed by it. And he goes, can I buy that painting from you? And here I'm 10 years old. And I go, yeah. And he goes, I'll give you $100 for that painting. And now they have it in their corporate office. So that made me realize, wow, I'm just not, this little kid that likes to paint. But I really didn't take it too serious until later on in life. I've always, painted and drawn and stuff like that. But when I'm on the movie set, especially when I'm acting, there's a lot of time in between them setting up sequences. So, I'll have my paintings set up in my trailer and I'll sit there and paint. And of course, producers, directors, and whoever come by and they go, oh my God, I love that. Can I buy that from you? And I just throw a number out there and said, yeah, if you got $10,000, $20,000, I'll sell it to you. And then they buy it. And then it just took off from there. And then a few years go by and then I'm up in Jackson Hole at a gallery and I see these paintings and I go, what would it take to get my paintings in your gallery? So I talked to him and I had just painted a watercolor. Now I paint in oil, but I started out in watercolor. So they said, I'd like to see something. And I just painted a picture for what was my father-in-law at the time for his mansion out there. And I brought it in and they went, oh my God, if you can paint that in oil, I'll take 7 of them. So I went home and I painted 7 of them and brought them back up to Jackson Hole. And 4 hours after I set one of the paintings up against the wall, it sold for $11,000. And then they started selling for $20,000 and $30,000. And and now I'm having a hard time keeping up with it, but here we go. So, and then I'm in Jackson Hole, Park City, Whitefish, Montana, which is, the Jackson Hole of Montana, and then in museums in California and now in Dallas, Texas.
Well, I mean, and I saw some pictures of some. You do some you do some pretty big pieces.
Yeah, they're 6 foot by 4 foot pieces. They're big because when I started doing them, I was doing them for these big mansions, log mansions in Jackson Hole, and they've got these big walls and big fireplaces, so they needed that. And of course I love, painting large and that. I do some smaller pieces as well, but the classic Rockwell painting, that's what you see with the big colors and stuff like that. And the thing about those paintings that you see, these are pictures that I've taken from movies that I've worked on, and a picture of me bucking a horse, or, like I did too for Taylor Sheraton, the producer of Yellowstone in 1883 and stuff like that. So I painted one where Tim McGraw's, bucking a horse, and then another one of James Landry, rearing a horse and shooting at a bad guy and stuff like that. So
these are your horses they're using?
Yeah, in the paintings there are pictures of my horses that I'm painting, which is great. And of course I own the horse. He passed away, but I have the horse from Dances with Wolves that Kevin Costner rode, and he was the stunt horse in that. And then, of course, done numerous other movies and such with my horses and all the tricks that they do.
Well, I don't want to dominate the whole conversation here because I've got Casey along, who contributes half to whatever show we do. Casey, jump in here.
I was going to say, I want to talk about the fact that you're going to be painting a picture at the WESA Trade Show in August for everybody to watch and see. And I was going to ask if there was going to be any stage fright there, but I think you've answered that question.
Yeah, no, as far as the stage fright thing, which is funny because I grew up really shy, but I guess I've gotten over that, working in the movie industry in front and behind the camera and such. And then, of course, you've probably seen pictures of the way I dress. I'm full on authentic cowboy. I'm 5th generation cowboy out of Montana. So I get a lot of, people coming up and wanting to take a picture with me. And it's like when I went to Dubai to perform for the shakeout there, I felt like I was Elvis. Every time I got out of the motorcade, everybody was snapping pictures and just wanted to take a picture with the cowboy and all that. So yeah, I've kind of gotten used to that now, and I'm so looking forward to meeting all the people at WESA and coming up and asking questions and taking pictures, and then to be able to show the process of me painting. And I've realized that that's a really cool aspect, and people really enjoy watching how that painting, comes alive in front of them. So I'm excited to share that with those people.
And can you share with us what you will be painting? Do you have a theme that you're going to paint?
Well, I'm going to paint one of my classic paintings, which is usually myself or an actor or somebody rearing on my horse, and then the background will be, either the mountains like the Grand Tetons or the Mission Mountains, or a landscape of Texas, the rolling hills and such like that. So that's probably what I'm going to go with. And then, of course, I'm doing the cover of their catalog and all their product that they're putting out. And I did a combination of, it's called 4 Friends Running, and it's a cowboy racing up this hill, and then there's a English rider as well racing up the hill, because it's a combination of the Western and the English, and they're racing up this hill, and it's called Four Friends Running or Racing. So it's really nice and colorful, and I used a sunset background, so it's they're excited about having it on all their product and all that.
Here on this show, we talk a lot, obviously, about fashion, jewelry, and clothes. And so when I talk to designers, I always say, where do you get your inspiration? How do you not run out of ideas? That question doesn't really seem to fit here, because when you talk about your paintings, I mean, it's like the inspiration is limitless with the things that you're painting, whether it be just nature or horses. There's so many different ways you could go with it. Does that seem to be true for you? Do you see that it's easy to always find inspiration for your paintings?
Yeah, and then I log it through my life. When I meet different people, or I might be on somebody else's ranch, or I might be out, fly fishing or on my ranch in Montana or whatever, I get inspired and I kind of log that in my mind. And sometimes I'll take a note, and put it on. Of course, nowadays it's on a phone, but and capture that moment, and then I can go back in my mind and grab that moment and put it on screen. And there's endless inspiration for what I do, especially being, a fifth generation cowboy. And then I'll think about stories, or I'll be telling a story about my grandfather and all that. And then, as well, I do cowboy gear, like the bandanas and such, the story about my grandfather telling me, about the bandana and how it's developed and how the cowboys would make them. And he showed me how to make them. And of course, now I make them for the movie industry. And if you've seen Yellowstone in 1883 and 1923, they're wearing my bandanas in that show, as well as Deadwood and Westworld. And then, whenever Sam Elliott's on screen, he wears my bandanas and such. And then I do the leather work as well, the cuffs and the holsters. I'm doing a series of holsters for Beretta Firearms for their antique division, where I'm making authentic holsters for the antique guns that the women and gentlemen that come in to buy them from their stores. I do technical advising on the authentic cowboy gear and how things, were supposed to look in that period, because every period in history, they have a different look. Sure. As far as a cowboy and what they wear and how it's worn and reasons for what they do. So, yeah, and living the cowboy life, and that's what I do, especially with my horses. And then, like right now, I'm in my historic mansion in Natchez, Mississippi, looking over the Mississippi, and it's a 210-year-old mansion, and it's all made out of logs. And it's just, and of course, just living in history inspires me as well. And then, of course, I've got my horses that I go out and train. And
I wanted to jump in here for a second, because I read the story, and I think our listeners would enjoy it, about the taking flour sacks down years ago and converting those into the scarves and that. Tell that story.
Yeah, my grandfather told me, of course, the first form of recycling was the flour sacks were made in a yard of material, and it would be a beautiful, paisley or calico print. And like a woman would go in and she'd buy like 4 sacks of flour and, have it stored in, but it'd all be made of the same pattern of material. And then she can go home and make a dress out of it, or shirt or tablecloth or whatever. But my grandfather said when they're on the cattle drives, the cook would have that sack. And as the guys are sitting around the campfire and, playing cards, and they've got a pot of money there, he would throw that in that pot of money, and whoever won that hand would get that flour sack. And then they would sit there and make their bandanas, and then they would, use them on the cattle drives and stuff. And there's 100 different uses for a bandana. So I took that and went forward with it. And a lot of times when I'm on set, let's say I'm not in my trailer and I'm sitting, behind camera at what they call Video Village, waiting to go on. Well, I'd have my little piece of material and my thread and my needle, and I'd sit there and I'd sew a bandana while I'm sitting there waiting, because I'm the kind of guy that I got to be doing something. I can't be just sitting there. So, and of course, as soon as I get one made, somebody wants to buy it. So then I sell it. And then, of course, wardrobe would look at that. And it's funny because, you got these wardrobe departments, and they got 15, 20 seamstresses there that are making these big ball gowns, but they come and they buy my bandanas because they're authentic. And then I tie the buckaroo knot in them, and, so they want it authentic, and the material that I get is authentic. Some of the material that I have is pre-Civil War or Civil War patterns and stuff like that. So
that was an interesting story. I watched you tell that story, something when I was going through doing background for the show, and I just thought it was a really kind of a great human interest story. But I think everybody who's going to be going to the show in August is going to want to book some time on their schedule to come by. And Casey asked a question, and I'm kind of a neophyte, so I'll ask it a little way. When you actually, I know you're saying you have an idea of what this painting is going to be, but do you ever make adjustments or change things in the process of doing the painting after you take a look at it and say, this really needs to be here, or I need to change this? And my other question is, where did you get the love of the bright colors? Because I saw so many of the paintings that are really bright colors. And I'd like to talk about that if you would.
Oh, okay. Well, the first question, do I ever change in midstream, let's say? Yeah, I've done that. And actually, one of the paintings that I first did for the gallery in Jackson Hole, I had this background, and it was kind of rolling hills, East Texas, the rolling hills and all that kind of stuff, Fredericksburg kind of look. And then when I sent them the picture, they went, well, what everybody loves here in Jackson Hole is the Grand Tetons. So then I went back and went, so I painted in the Grand Tetons to fit that area in Jackson Hole, because they wanted, they want something that looks like Jackson Hole. So I would do that. And there's times when I'll be painting something and I'll get inspired and, a different direction. I'll go, what if I put that in there? And then it just changed the whole story of the painting. And what's funny is George Lucas of the Star Wars fame, he's a big fan of my cousin, Norman Rockwell, the painter, and he's got the biggest private collection of his paintings and stuff. And he said that here Norman Rockwell can paint a picture and tell a whole story with one picture, and everybody thinks that him, as George Lucas, is a great storyteller, but he goes, I got to put millions of pictures together to tell a story, and here's Norman Rockwell telling the whole story in one painting. So who's the master here? So I thought that was a cute story that George Lucas told me. Yeah, and then the other question was the bright colors. One of the crazy things that happened is when I was asked to do those oil paintings, I thought, well, I haven't oil painted in a while. So I just took this big canvas and I started just like throwing the colors to it and just having fun and stretching my muscles. And I was just about to paint over that picture and do another picture over it because, at the time I thought I wasn't really impressed with it. I didn't think it was, my style. And I thought, well, I'll just bring it anyways. And that's the one that sat up against the wall and sold within 4 hours. And then the gallery said, oh my God, that's a masterpiece. And I'm like, oh shoot. Okay. And then I took a closer look at it, and everybody that sees my classic paintings, they're just, overwhelmed and, it just takes their breath away. And I went, oh, okay. That's what they're looking for. And so now I'm just really bold with the colors, and I really want it to pop off the screen. And it's just really become my classic and what people want.
For the people who are going to come and watch you, do you mind if they ask you questions or chit chat with you, or what's the environment that you like when you're doing the painting? Because somebody may want to ask a question and not know if they could or should, but you're going to be there with lots of WESA people coming to the show. I'm sure they want to do what's appropriate. You sound like a guy who's pretty easy to talk to, but I thought I'd ask the question.
No, I love it when people come up and they ask, and I love to give back. I mean, I've done that so much, and I've helped people, come into the industry and give them a leg up to, whether it's a young guy that wants to be a stuntman or a horse trainer or whatever, and give back. And then I love to inspire people, especially kids, and of course, kids of all ages, and asking questions. And then what that does is it just fuels the fire inside of me to do even more and better. And I do a lot of speaking engagements. I go into schools and stuff and try to inspire children to give a reason why they need to stay in school. Because in my situation, I'll go in and I'll show them videotapes of course, now it's DVDs or whatever, but of the stuff that I've done where I'm crashing a car on fire or, rolling a wagon or falling off a horse or, doing all that, here I get paid huge amounts of money to play for a living because when I was in school, I studied hard and I have dyslexia, and it was hard for me to learn and do, especially in the day they didn't know what it was. So if I can inspire, a young mind to go forward and go after their dream, and, not everybody is cut out to go to college and do that route. There is artists out there that aren't good at school and all that, but there's another outlet that they can get into and do what I do. I mean, I grabbed onto that and went forward, and I've made a massive amount of money doing what I do and playing at work. But, it's hard work, and you set a goal and you go after it. And the thing about the paintings as well, which I've tried to teach inspiring artists, is, you have that in mind that, don't underestimate yourself. When I paint a picture that, in my heart and soul is not that I put a price on it, but it's going to be a $30,000 painting. I don't go, well, I hope I sell this thing. No, it's that goal and that set in mind. And that's where I put it. And that's the price tag I put on it. When I first started doing it, they're like, how do you think you can demand that amount of money for a painting? And, in the beginning, I didn't have a name and this and that. And I'm like, because it's worth that much. And they're like, I don't know if, and then boom, 4 hours, it brings that price because, I don't undersell myself.
That painting that you produce is going to be sold, and WESA will benefit again because a portion of what, as I understand it, a portion of what the painting sells for will go to the WESA Trust, which means that there's a lot of benefit coming out of and enjoyment coming out of because you love to do it and doing the painting at WESA.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And then now I'm in the position where I can, give back and give to these charities. And, we're doing another charity event for the Cattle Barons Ball. And, I'm donating a $30,000 painting for that deal, as well as the packages. I'm going to go to the person's house that have bought the painting, and they're going to do an unveiling, and then we'll have a huge dinner, and I'll do an appearance and all that, because that's a lot of what I do as well. People don't only love what my paintings, but they love the whole lifestyle and be able to talk and hear my stories and where I came from and what I've done with my life, because it has been a very exciting journey, and I love to share it with these people. And if they want to come up as I'm painting, go ahead and talk all you want, and I'll answer your questions, because
I think that's going to be great. Casey, what else you got?
Well, I think on behalf of WESA, we're very fortunate to have your beautiful work and to be a part of our August show, and going to be on the cover of our January program. And it was really a great interview today, and we really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you so much. And feel free to, if you want to come back and do a second interview, or if you have other questions that you might think later, I'm here for you.
Okay. Hey, thanks a lot. We appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you very much.
The show notes and links from today's show can be found at the wisdombywesa.com website. And as always, if you have feedback, we'd love to hear it. There's a contact link on the site.
The Wisdom by WESA show will be published on the 15th and 30th of every month. You can listen on most of your favorite podcast players. You can also listen on wisdombywesa.com. Be sure to visit all the great shows on the Horse Radio Network at horseradionetwork.com. WESA, where the industry meets.